I woke up and realized I was in a world built on angst, a dark romance novel, the kind where the guy gets put through hell. As the contract husband of the beautiful CEO Jessica Miller, I was just a tool she used to keep her family off her back. The moment I heard her one that got away was about to return to the country, I started packing to hell with this angsty world. Whoever wants to suffer can have it. I'm not a masochist, but something seemed off. How did her old flames flight back to the States get? Rerouted to a black site in Eastern Europe, and that conniving little assistant of hers. How'd he get shipped off to a diamond mine in Sierra Leone before he even had a chance to play the victim? The way my CEO wife looked at me was getting weirder and weirder too, until I made my escape, only to wake up tied to a bed. A pair of crimson eyes stared at me from the side and she licked her lips. Have a safe trip, Miss Miller. I gave her my best, most supportive wave as Jessica Miller prepared to get in her car. A respectful smile plastered on my face. Gosh, it's a shame I'm not feeling well today. Otherwise, I'd never let you go handle this yourself. I really want to go with you. You know what a missed opportunity to learn from you, I said, my voice dripping with regret and apology. Jessica paused with her hand on the car door and turned, a placid smile on her face. Then get in. We have a doctor on call. The smile on my face froze. My eyes darted back and forth. I deliberately covered my mouth and let out a series of racking coughs, veins popping on my forehead as my face turned red. I struggled to look at her, trying to project an image of pure determination. Cough, cough, boss. I cough, cough. You're right, I can do this. Cough. Jessica sighed and waved her hand dismissively. Forget it, to stay here and rest. She got in the car and it quickly sped away. The second her car vanished from sight, I spun around and sprinted back into the house. I ran to my room, pulled the suitcase hidden in the back of my closet, and after final check, bolted out of the villa. A car I booked in advance pulled up. I jumped in and told the driver to step on it, airport bound. The car sped off. I watched Jessica's villa shrink in the distance, but I couldn't relax. Not yet. I was on high alert. It wasn't until we reached the airport and my phone was still silent. No messages from Jessica that I allowed myself to breathe a little. I stomped on my old phone, shattering it, then dropped it into a cup of water before tossing in a trash can. I pulled out a new phone and slipped in the new SIM card. I boarded the plane to another country. Only when I was settled in my seat did I finally let out a long, deep sigh. You're probably wondering why I do this. Why would I give up being Jessica Miller's contract husband and the $50,000 monthly salary that came with it? Am I nuts? There was a reason for all of it. I thought back to how Jessica first found me. It was a bright, sunny day. The bus ride back to my hometown had been brutally long, and the second I got off, I found a secluded patch of woods to relieve myself. Just as I was enjoying the moment, a voice came from the side. Excuse me, is Havenwood nearby? It startled me so much I just stopped. Before I could even zip up, I instinctively turned and saw a woman in a white dress standing there, emanating an air of elegance. Her eyes were fixed on my equipment, a half smile playing on her lips. A wave of embarrassment washed over me as I quickly put myself away. What a creep. Of course, I didn't say that out loud. I feigned composure and said, yeah, just keep going another 5 miles that way. The woman glanced in the direction I pointed, a thoughtful look on her face before smiling helplessly. I'm sorry, but could you possibly take me to Havenwood? I stared at her, ready to refuse. Sure, she was beautiful and I was heading to Havenwood anyway, but she was a stranger and I had to be. I can give you $20,000. Deal. So much for being cautious. The moment the wire transfer hit my account, my grin was so wide it practically split my face. The woman smiled and extended her hand. Hi, I'm Jessica Miller. She was the boss now, so I had to be respectful. I raised my hand, then remembered what I'd just been doing and wiped it on my shirt. I hesitated, but Jessica simply took my hand in hers. I looked at her, surprised. She was beaming, not a hint of disgust on her face. Well, if she didn't care, neither did I. Hi, I'm Ethan Cole. Are you from Havenwood, Mr. Cole? Jessica asked from the driver's seat, occasionally glancing over at me. I nodded, born and raised. So what brings you back? I looked at her, then back out the window. My parents said they needed to talk to me about something in person, I see. Jessica murmured. What about you? I asked casually. Jessica chuckled and looked at me again. Me? I'm here to find someone, I faint surprise, coming all this way, must be someone pretty important to you. Jessica smiled. They are the most important person, the love of my life for 2 lifetimes. Heavy stuff. We drove into Havenwood and I was about to go my own way, but Jessica insisted on dropping me at my house. Aren't you in a hurry to find this person? She just smiled. No hurry, I didn't argue. When we got to my house I knocked, but no one answered. That's weird. Are they not home? I pulled out my phone and called them. Hey Dad, where are you and Mom? I asked confused. The line was noisy and I could barely hear him. He must have moved because the sound cleared up. Son, there's something I need to tell you. His hesitant tone was strange. You see, before he could finish, my mom's voice cut in. Ethan, your father and I are on vacation overseas. Can't talk long. She was about to hang up and I yelled, wait, you're the ones who told me to come back and now you're telling me you're out of the country. That a bit of leap, don't you think? But the line was already dead. I stare at my phone dumbfounded. What the hell were those 2 playing at? I sighed. They were always pulling stunts like this. Jessica was watching me with an amused smile. Embarrassed, I took out my spare key and opened the door. She walked in and looked around freely. And then it's cozy. I walked over, poured a glass of water and handed it to her. My parents are into all this quirky stuff. The house really was cozy. It had a warm color palette and was filled with all sorts of odd little trinkets, but it didn't feel cluttered. Jessica took a sip of water. Can I stay here? While? She asked softly. Her suggestion stunned me. She explained, I came in a hurry and didn't book a hotel. I can pay rent. I waved my hand. She'd already given me more than enough. Don't worry about rent. It's just for a few days. We have a spare room. Jessica nodded gently. That afternoon, I treated her to a meal at the best diner in town, which she raved about. That evening, I got the spare room ready with fresh sheets. It's a simple setup, nothing like the city. Jessica looked around at the decor with a soft expression and whispered, it's just like it was before. I didn't quite hear her, and thinking she was unhappy with something, I quickly asked, what's wrong? Is something not right? Jessica shook her head and smiled. Nothing. I think it's wonderful. Good to hear. After that, I went back to my room to sleep. But during the night, I kept feeling like someone was watching me. Warm breath was close by. I could feel sense of urgency from a person. But when I opened my eyes, there was no one by my bed. Weird. Was the place haunted? The next morning when I came out, Jessica was sitting gracefully at the dining table eating breakfast. When she saw me, she smiled and waved. Breakfast is ready. I walked over and saw was all my favorites. I smiled, sat down without ceremony, and took a few bites of my bagel. I looked up at her in surprise. Looks like we have the same taste. I joked. Everything bagels with lox in. This coffee. As I spoke, Jessica just smiled faintly. Is that so? How wonderful. It must be fake. I smiled back. After breakfast, I took Jessica on a tour of Havenwood. It was a historic town that had seen a lot of development in recent years. The tourist spots and attractions were well equipped. Jessica didn't have any specific requests, so I just took her around all of them. Historic sites, hiking up to the temple for good luck, watching glass blowers, hitting up the food trucks and boating on the lake. Those few days were actually a lot of fun. Jessica and I got along great except for the haunting. Every day at the house I'd feel strange eyes on me. At night too, and I'd wake up with an aching back. It was like I'd been wrestling with a ghost, but my time was limited. I had just graduated and needed to find a job. Well, I should get going, I told Jessica. She just smiled and nodded. What could I do? I wanted to stay and have fun longer. Just as I was about to head back, my phone rang. I looked at the caller ID and fumed. Hello, Dad. You remembered you have a son? I snapped. I've been trying to call them for days with no luck. He laughed awkwardly and then Mom cut in. Ethan, we forgot to tell you something. What? I asked, puzzled. Mom let out a big sheepish laugh. I found you a wife. Aren't you excited? Her name is Jessica Miller and she's gorgeous. You two have met, right? I froze. Phone still pressed my ear and looked over at Jessica. She was smiling, that same faint smile. Quickly walked away and whispered into the phone. What are you talking about? What wife? Mom said nonchalantly. Oh, to put it simply, we sold you to Ms. Miller. What? For $500,000. That's not the point. Click. She hung up. I gritted my teeth. They could have at least given me a cut. I put my phone away and took a breath, preparing to face Jessica. I turned and her face was inches from mine. It made me jump, so. Did you hear the arrangement Mom and Dad made? Hubby. That one word, hubby, sent a shiver down my spine. Can I break the contract? I asked, forcing a grin. Jessica just kept smiling faintly, but it made me tremble. The penalty is $10 million. Okay, honey. And just like that, my own parents sold me for $500,000. In reality, I became Jessica's contract husband. The term was 3 years. During that time, I'd also be her assistant and make $50,000 a month. Thinking about it, it was a hell of a deal, but Jessica moved fast, really fast. Right after we left Havenwood, she had me drive straight to the city hall. Before I knew it, we had registered and gotten our marriage license. Walking out of the building, staring at the brightly colored certificate, my brain felt fuzzy. Something was off. It was like I'd been hit over the head with a club and everything was buzzing. When the fog cleared, I realized something. I wasn't from here. Not just not from this town, but not from this world. And the way I got here was the crowd-pleasing classic, a semi-truck. But that wasn't the most important part. What mattered was that I hadn't been transported to some fantasy world or a cyberpunk wasteland. No, I wasn't a goddamn chasing the guy to the crematorium romance novel. Even that might have been okay based on my years of binging web novels. There was a chance I'd landed in a decent version. You know, the kind where the CEO wife's old flame comes back. I get my heart broken. We get a quick divorce and then I find a girl I actually love while my ex-wife gets her comeuppance and begs me for forgiveness through a flood of tears. If it were that kind, I could deal. But after some careful analysis and digging through the memories in my head, damn it, I wasn't in that kind of world. I was in the other kind. The miserable, frustrating kind where I get relentlessly hurt and end up on death's door. The kind where I whisper, I don't love you anymore, and then die. And the worst part was the author skimped on every detail except for the meticulous play-by-play descriptions of how the male lead was tortured. They really wanted to make sure the reader's emotions were stirred up, make sure you felt thoroughly, hopelessly wretched. And this male lead, he was stubborn. He just wouldn't leave no matter what. I mean, you have a contract. She pays you. You do your job, that's it. How do you fall in love? He was clearly the type to fall for his drill sergeant in boot camp, his driving instructor, or his barber. Ugh. Sighed, damn it. Why couldn't I have woken up to this sooner? I caught Jessica's attention. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? I looked at her. She was beautiful, classy, with a killer body. Why would you turn into that kind of person in the future? It's nothing, I said with a weak smile, brushing it off. Just feeling a little emotional. I can't believe I got married so quickly. Is that so? You'll get used to it, Jessica said with a faint smile. Get in the car. Let's go home. I blinked. Home. Jessica raised an eyebrow. Yes, we're married. Shouldn't we go home? It clicked. All right, home. Let's go home. I got in the car and drove to the address she gave me. My eyes were on the road, but my mind was already made up. I had to find a way to escape. When we arrived, I was stunned. I turned to look at Jessica. Boss, you didn't say we were meeting your parents. Standing at the entrance to a massive villa were a Kindle-looking middle-aged couple. Oh, did I not mention it? Well, I'm telling you now. Listen up. Jessica smiled. We're meeting my parents today. I dug a finger in my ear, then gave a weary smile, perfect timing. She laughed and got out of the car. I scrambled to follow. Oh man, I didn't even have time to get a gift. I was honestly a little nervous. Mom, Dad, I told you to wait inside. Jessica's mother patted her hand. We just wanted to get an early look at the son-in-law you brought home. She looked at me, then smiled at Jessica's father. Well, he looks very handsome. I'm quite pleased. Her father nodded in approval. I hurried over. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, it's nice to meet you. I'm Ethan Cole. After I spoke, they both looked at me strangely. Jessica nudged my arm and mouthed something. I understood instantly. Mom, Dad, yes. They both replied with warm smiles. Come in, come in. You must be tired after such a long drive. Jessica's mother took my arm and led me inside. A magnificent feast was already laid out on the table. They sat me down with Jessica next to me. Her mom kept piling food onto my plate while her dad asked me about my life. I answered truthfully. Every time I finished speaking, my plate would be stacked high again. I'd look over and see her mother's expectant gaze. All I could do was stuff my face until it was clean. This was so weird. Why were they being so nice to me? We'd only just met. My mind was racing, but my mouth never stopped chewing. That evening, Jessica's mother said to us with a cheerful smile, "Since you two are married now, I won't bother preparing a separate room." She then gave us a look that said, "You two should go rest now." I glanced awkwardly at Jessica. She didn't seem embarrassed at all. She just smiled and turned to me. "Hubby, it's time for bed." I followed Jessica into the room. The air smelled faintly of her perfume. I looked at her. "Boss, I think I should." Before I could finish, she pushed me onto the bed. Her cheek pressed against mine. Her breath was warm. Her eyelashes were long and curled. Her skin was pale. Her cheeks flushed. I was getting confused. Was my realization wrong? It couldn't be. Jessica stared at me intently, then suddenly rolled over. "So tired. Time for sleep," she announced, pulling the covers around herself as if nothing had happened. I was baffled. What did that mean? I looked at the empty space next to her, then around the room. "Oh, what the hell, why be shy? It's not like I'm the one losing out here." I climbed into bed. It was comfortable, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing, the gentle fragrance filling my senses. My eyelids started to feel heavy. My head swam. Less than 5 minutes after lying down, I was out cold. In my dreams, I felt like I was in a volcano, my whole body burning up. But soon enough, a cool sensation spread over me, like being covered in chilled jello, cool and smooth. My temperature gradually dropped, and at the moment the volcano erupted, I felt a release myself. The searing heat vanished instantly. That night's sleep was deep and comfortable. When I opened my eyes again, it was morning. The sunlight was blinding. The first thing I saw was a vast expanse of white. Good Lord, am I allowed to be seeing this? Jessica had turned over and the collar of her nightgown had fallen open, revealing her ample chest. Her face was flushed, her hair tousled against her cheeks. She looked like she'd been thoroughly satisfied. An illusion it had to be. I immediately got out of bed. What if my resolve wavered and I broke my discipline? With that thought, I quickly got dressed and left the room. The moment I stepped out, her mom pulled me over to the breakfast table. A few moments later, Jessica emerged, yawning and stretching, revealing a pale shoulder. I pretended not to see a thing. Fast forward to the airplane. I gazed out the window, feeling a wave of pure relief. Looking back on the past 3 years as Jessica's assistant, it was exhausting, but I didn't regret it. I had saved a lot of money, made connections, and gained valuable work experience. I was satisfied. In the beginning, I had no idea what an assistant did. Thankfully, Jessica wasn't too demanding and gave me plenty of time to learn, so I couldn't let her down. I used every spare second to study, asked for advice, and listened carefully. I double and triple checked every detail of my work. I asked questions when I was confused and sought help when I didn't know something. I grew quickly. Slowly, I went from handling small projects to managing major ones. Over 3 years, the people around me came to respect my professional abilities, but I started to notice that Jessica seemed to enjoy slacking off. She was always using work inspections as an excuse to drag me on trips or to amusement parks, bakeries, and arcades. In 3 years, we visited most of the famous sites across the country. That woman, she was seriously hurting my work efficiency, like right now. Jessica held a fork with a piece of cake up to my mouth. I took a bite. She beamed with happiness. I constantly reminded myself not to be fooled by her, even though she seemed kind and warm to me now. The moment her old flame returned, she would run straight into his arms. Her cruel nature would be exposed, and she would torture me endlessly to please him. With that thought, I ate the piece of cake she offered me again. "Not bad. I'll worry about the future later." "Okay, your turn," Jessica said, putting down her fork and opening her red lips slightly. I sighed, picked up my fork, and fed her a piece of cake. Jessica ate it contentedly, a blissful expression on her face. Our current situation didn't look like a fake marriage at all. We seemed more like a genuinely loving couple. Could Jessica really change so drastically in the future? I couldn't help but wonder. Then I mentally slapped myself. Damn it. Why are you hesitating? As I thought this, Jessica leaned in, a look of concern on her face. "What's wrong? Why did you hit yourself?" I forced a smile. "Oh, there was a mosquito." Jessica looked thoughtful. Her next move caught me completely by surprise. She pressed her lips to my cheek. I felt a cool sensation, as if something had licked me. I stared at her in shock. She licked her lips and chuckled. There you had a big mosquito bite. It doesn't itch you anymore, right? That was a mosquito bite. I swallow hard, damn it. I was really having trouble resisting this. After all, this wasn't the first time. Thinking back, Jessica wasn't like this at the beginning. She kept a normal distance. We ate, slept, and worked like professionals. But then, as if she were testing my boundaries, things slowly started to change. It started with her claiming my food looked better at restaurants, and that ordering another dish would be a waste, so we should share. Oh, your food looks so delicious, but I can't finish another whole dish. It would be such a waste. She'd blink her eyes at me, a look that clearly said, I'm eating your food. Then she started accidentally grabbing my drink and drinking from it. Oops, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. You don't mind, do you? Then somehow she hurt her hand, and for a while I had to feed her every meal. I'm so sorry to trouble you like this with my hand. She happily accepted my feeding, not looking the least bit sorry. It even happened when she was showering. She'd call out from the bathroom, I can't reach my back to put on body wash. Can you help me? Good grief. I'm a gentleman. How could I possibly do something like that? Is this pressure okay? I asked, patting her back gently. Jessica's cheeks were red as she looked down. That feels nice. I puff on my chest, my back scrubbing in. Massage skills are top-notch, satisfaction guaranteed. What can I say? She immediately zelled me $10,000. Later on, it became a regular thing. Can you help me again? I just feel like it's not clean unless it's been properly scrubbed. Jessica would smile and pull out her phone. At your service, ma'am. Thinking about it now, it was all a gradual process. I rubbed my head in frustration. After dragging me through a gift and jewelry store, we spent the rest of the day at an amusement park. We finally headed home, loaded down with shopping bags. Jessica had a thing for red wine. I was exhausted from the day and went to bed early. But not long after I fell asleep, I felt a warm body snuggle up against me. I turned my head and saw Jessica less than a foot away. Her face was peaceful. She was asleep. I sighed again. I don't even know when this started after I moved in. First, it was getting up in the middle of the night and accidentally walking into my room and getting into my bed. Then it was getting drunk and crawling under my covers. Then there were thunderstorms and power outages, and she was scared and needed me to sleep with her. My God, any man would lose control, but I wasn't just any man. Besides, if I gave in now, I'd be a dead man when her old flame came back. I picked Jessica up and carried her to her room. The woman even wrapped her arms around my neck on her own. After laying her down, I tried to leave, but a pair of delicate hands grabbed me. I lost my balance and tumbled onto the bed. Jessica's arms were wrapped tightly around my neck. The more I struggled, the tighter she held on. It was impossible to break free. Defeated, I let her hold my head firmly against her impressive chest. Honestly, it was very soft. After a while, I felt her breathing even out. I gently pried her arms away, straightened her out on the bed, and tiptoed out of the room. If I stayed any longer, I was going to make a mistake. I rested my chin on my hand, staring at the clouds outside the airplane window. Thinking back on everything, it would be a lie to say my heart wasn't moved. Jessica treated me like I was her real husband. But all that into the moment, I received news that her old flame was coming back. It was a day like any other. Jessica and I were coming back from hike. She was being reckless on the way down, taking several steps at a time, and ended up twisting her ankle. That was just great for me. I had to carry her on my back all the way down. A light rain started. Fall, which was actually quite pleasant and cool. We finally made it to the parking lot and I drove her to the hospital to get it checked. While we were waiting, I got a text. Ever since I woke up, I'd hired someone to keep tabs on her old flame. Seeing that he was about to return, my heart grew heavy. Then I checked my bank account balance and the heaviness instantly lifted. I was ready. The days that followed were normal. I prepared for my departure and Jessica never suspected a thing. Big business deal came up and Jessica had to go negotiate in person. It was the perfect opportunity. A few days beforehand, I started faking being sick. I convinced Jessica to go alone with another team member and I used the chance to run. I'm a genius. As I thought this, I started to feel drowsy and gradually fell asleep. When I woke up, it would be the start of my new life. For the next few months, I was a global nomad. I went to Iceland to see the geysers, the blue ice caves, and the northern lights. I saw the Sydney Opera House in Australia, visited Darling Harbour and St. Mary's Cathedral. In New Zealand, I explored Lake Wanaka and Mount Eden. Then I went to Denmark to see Hans Christian Andersen's hometown, Singapore's Chinatown, Japan's Sensogi Temple, Nar Park, Akihabara, and the Tokyo Tower. I took a bite of the omelette rice at a maid cafe while scrolling through the latest news from back home. Pode. I spread a mouthful of rice across the table. What the hell? I was reading a message from my informant. The so-called old flame had his plane diverted the moment it landed. He was immediately transferred to a flight bound for Eastern Europe. By now, he was either rotting in a black site or his body parts were scattered across the globe. I opened another message. The plot was even more ridiculous than that. Besides the old flame, there was also a conniving little assistant, the soft, delicate type who was always on the verge of tears. According to the original story, he was supposed to show up in my second year and kick off another round of Insta drama. But back then I had my people look for him and they couldn't find a trace. Now seeing this I was floored. Good Lord, was this really that same delicate assistant? The photo showed a gaunt, dark-skinned man swinging a pickaxe in a vast open pit mine. Holy crap, he was tricked and sent to mine in Africa before his part in the story even began. I threw my head back and groaned. How did the plot get so completely derailed? "Master, would you like to take a picture with me?" A sweet voice asked from beside me. I looked up at the speaker. Sure, my smile froze on my face. "Jessica, well, fancy seeing you here, boss. You come to make cafes often." I immediately stood up and started gathering my things. "I was just leaving, so I won't bother you." I tried to run, but my legs felt weak and I stumbled into a soft embrace. When I came to, I was in a room with a familiar scent. "This is Jessica's room." I panicked and tried to get up, but my arms and legs were tied down. I couldn't move. Then a familiar fragrance drifted over and my vision was obscured by something soft. I heard Jessica's voice, but it sounded strange. "Ah, I can finally get close to you like this." Brother, I was confused. Did Jessica have such a weird fetish? Just then my vision cleared, but the next thing I saw was Jessica with a crazed look in her eyes, licking her finger with a smile. The punishment isn't enough. She climbed onto the bed, crawling forward until she was above my head. Then I felt a piece of cloth cover my eyes, and then, "What the hell, you psycho?" She was rubbing against me through the fabric and I could barely breathe. But it seemed like Jessica wasn't satisfied. She moved down, still not enough. "I have to punish you properly for being naughty." And then she began, "You have to hold it in, okay? Don't you dare finish until I say you can." A while later, we were both completely spent. "You win. You're incredible." As my mind went blank, it suddenly started working again and a wave of terror washed over me. This feeling, it was so familiar in my old world. I looked at Jessica in horror. She tilted her head, licked a drop of milk from the corner of her mouth, and smiled. "You finally remember who I am, don't you?" In that moment, all the pieces clicked into place: why she was so good to me, why her parents were so friendly, and why her old flame and the conniving assistant had met such brutal ends. It was all because Jessica was a transmigrator, too. In my original world, my situation was complicated. I was one of those left-behind kids raised by my grandpa. My parents worked jobs that took them far from home, coming back maybe once a year until one summer when I was 10. They came back to stay and they brought a little girl with them. My dad said she was my sister. I didn't see it that way. In my eyes, she was just a stranger they suddenly brought home. My parents said they weren't leaving again. They'd find jobs at a local factory and be there to watch us grow up. I didn't object. To be honest, I never resented them. When I was younger, they had been loving and doing. They always brought me the best food and toys. I still remember my dad helping me make wooden swords and toy guns, taking me to the river to catch fish and crabs. My mom would cook my favorite meals, worry if I was warm enough, and hold me in her lap while she told me stories. Even when they worked far away, they'd bring back treats and toys for me and spend the holidays playing with me. I never felt pitiful. My childhood was happy. Even when they were gone, I had my grandpa and my friends. My days were filled with play and school, but this new sister started to disrupt my life. She was tiny, hiding behind my mother, peeking out with timid eyes. My father told me that from now on, as the older brother, I had to take good care of her. I didn't say yes and I didn't say no. From then on, when our parents went to work, I'd go to school and my sister would follow behind me, her little backpack bobbing always, keeping a certain distance. I figured she didn't like her strange new brother either. We were like roommates. You do your thing, I do mine, and we don't interfere with each other. Sometimes my parents would make me take her out to play. She'd trail behind me silently, keeping her distance. While we played, she'd sit under a tree, watching us, sometimes sketching a drawing pad. Her kindergarten was across the street from my elementary school. When we got to the entrance, I'd point. You go there, I go there. She would nod timidly. But when I walked into my school, I'd instinctively look back and see her still standing at the gate, looking lost. I'd sigh, worried about getting yelled at by my parents, and walk back over. All right, I'll take you. I walked ahead and she stuck close to my side like a lost fawn. I took her to her classroom and said hi to her teacher, who smiled warmly at her. Hello there, what's your name? But my sister was too shy to speak. I sighed and answered for her. When everything was settled, I turned to leave, but I felt a tug on my sleeve. Her eyes were filled with panic, signaling me not to go. Looking at her tiny, scared face, I couldn't bring myself to leave her. As a result, I missed a whole morning of classes to stay and play with her at the kindergarten. When school let out, I found her huddled in a corner, her eyes fixed on the gate. The moment she saw me, her face lit up with a joyful smile. I sighed helplessly as she trotted over and grabbed my sleeve. We walked home together. You really got me in trouble. She tilted her head, not understanding. That day my dad spanked me. It stung like crazy. My sister stood in front of me and my father finally found out the truth. Brother, why didn't you say it was because you were staying with me? I looked at her innocent eyes and scratched my head. Because I wanted to play too. She giggled. Silly brother. I just shrugged and smiled. After that, every day was the same, but my sister went from timidly keeping her distance to happily holding my hand and introducing me to her friends. After school, she'd wait for me excitedly at the gate, but I still didn't really understand the concept of a sister. I was a boy who loved to play, and being tasked with looking after her meant I couldn't run wild like I used to. It was annoying. It wasn't that I minded bringing her along, but she was too little and couldn't keep up. And the other boys were at that age where they didn't like playing with girls. Every time I brought her, they'd chant in that annoying sing-song gong way. You brought your sister again. You must really love your sister. I didn't care. It wasn't about that. I was just afraid of what my dad would say. My sister would just watch us quietly, a shy smile on her face. One day we were playing hide and seek. The sky was getting dark. It was my turn to be. They all scattered and hid. I was good at finding them and quickly rounded them all up, but I couldn't find my sister. The rain started coming down harder, and I figured she must have gone home on her own, so I ran home. When my grandpa saw me come back alone, he asked, "Where's your sister?" That's when I knew she wasn't back. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The wind howled. Everyone was rushing home. Grandpa hurried out to look for her. I stood there frozen. The TV was reporting on a child who had died in an accident. My heart sank. I bolted out into the rain. I searched everywhere we had played, but I couldn't find her. I was soaked to the bone. My knees were scraped from falling, and my face and clothes were covered in mud. My parents were definitely going to kill me when they got home, but I didn't care about that. I was frantic, searching everywhere. Finally, in a patch of tall grass, I heard her voice. She was crouched there quietly, a large leaf held over her head. When she saw me, her eyes lit up with a happy smile. "Brother, you found me." At that moment, tears streamed down my face. She just looked at me confused. That day I carried her home on my back. "Brother, will Mom be mad that our clothes are dirty?" "Let her be mad." She hugged me tighter, smearing mud all over my back. "Then I'll be with you, brother." After that day, my sister and I became inseparable. I finally understood that this tiny person was my sister, someone I would have to support and protect for years to come, someone who shared my blood, someone I was terrified of losing. Soon she started elementary school, the same one as me. We no longer had to part ways. We walked into school holding hands. I didn't care what my friends said anymore. My sister was my sister and I would protect her. As we got older, the school work got harder. It seemed my sister didn't have a knack for it. She always failed her exams. My parents were worried, so I started tutoring her, but how should I put it? She just wasn't cut out for academics. Her results were disastrous. After a while of tutoring, she went from failing to barely passing. It wasn't much of an improvement. My parents gave up. They just wanted us to live happy, fulfilling lives. My sister would often ask me tearfully, "Brother, am I really stupid? Am I useless?" I looked at her swollen eyes. She had cried all night, clutching her report card. I hugged her gently. "No, you're not. My sister just isn't skilled in this particular area." I saw her sketchbook nearby and smiled. "You're just looking in the wrong direction." I picked it up. It was obvious her drawing skills were improving day by day. "Look. I could never draw like this. I'm actually jealous." She took the sketchbook, wiped her eyes, and looked at me. "Really?" I smiled and stroked her head. "Really? Have I ever lied to you?" After that day, my sister threw herself in her art. My father, smoking his cigarette and watching her, looked relieved. But then he sighed. "If she wants to go down this path, it's going to cost a lot of money." I was afraid he would take her art away, but he didn't. The next day, he and my mother left. They were going back to work far away. The next time they came back, it was in 2 urns. My father had an accident at a construction site. When my mother heard the news, she was killed in a car crash on her way there. A friend of my father's from our hometown brought back the compensation money, the urns, and their belongings. From that day on, my sister and I were orphans. A few years earlier, when my grandpa died, my sister had watched my parents kneeling in mourning clothes and asked me, "Brother, where did Grandpa go?" I stroked her head and said, "Grandpa went to a place very, very far away." She blinked her innocent eyes and asked, "Will Mom and Dad and you leave me one day too?" I was stunned at her age. She didn't have a deep understanding of death. "Well, maybe," I said, looking at the flickering candle light and listening to the mournful funeral music. "But we'll do everything we can to stay with you until the very last moment of our lives." She hugged me tightly. I didn't know if she understood what I meant, if she grasped the meaning of death. But now, with our parents gone, she was no longer that innocent child. My sister grabbed my hand. It was warm. "Brother, you still have me." I looked at her and the tears I'd been holding back finally fell. I squeezed her hand tightly. "Yeah." From that day on, my sister was like a different person. Her grades skyrocketed. She became popular at school, loved by her classmates and teachers. I, on the other hand, juggled my studies with a part-time job at a bookstore. It was owned by an old childless couple. When they heard about my situation, they eagerly hired me. They called it a job, but it wasn't demanding, just stocking shelves and organizing books. I knew the money our parents left wouldn't last forever, so I wanted to contribute as much as I could to our living expenses. I didn't want my sister to feel deprived or inferior because of our family situation. The couple who owned the bookstore treated us like family. They often invited us over for dinner and had us spend holidays with them. They would secretly slip extra cash into my paycheck. They were good, kind people, our guardian angels. "Brother, I want to major in science." My sister told me this over dinner one night. "But don't you love drawing? Don't worry about the money. I can get more jobs, and once I graduate from college and start working, I can." She took my hand and shook her head. "It's not that, brother. I just don't like drawing anymore. I feel like I can't draw." I froze. She was blaming herself, feeling guilty that our parents had died while working to pay for her art lessons. She was taking that burden on herself and trying to ease the financial pressure on me. She had once said she would drop out of school to work like me. She'd even found jobs a few times, but I always stopped her. "Don't underestimate your big brother. I'm pretty capable." From then on, I watched her like a hawk, terrified she'd try again. She continued, "Science is great. I can be like you, get a good job, and then we can make a lot of money, buy a big house, and have a home of our own." Looking at her, I felt a wave of guilt. In the end, it was my fault for not being a better brother. I had thought about dropping out of high school to work, but she stopped me, using the same reasoning against me. "At least finish college, brother. If you don't, then I won't either." We held each other that day. After dinner, my sister and I did the dishes. I washed, she dried and put them away. Then we wiped the table, did the laundry, and cleaned the house. We moved together like a couple married for years. After that, I went to the bookstore. The couple had passed away and left it to me. But these days, fewer and fewer people read physical books. The other bookstores in the area had closed down one by one. I barely had any customers. I felt like I was failing them. I sighed. Eventually, as I went on to college and then work, the bookstore closed for good. I found a job at a tech company with a good salary. Our lives started to improve. It seemed like things were finally looking up. My sister became even more brilliant in college. She was beautiful, smart, and well-liked. She was always showing off the award she won, and I'd take her out for a fancy dinner with my new salary to celebrate. It felt like we were making up for all the hard years. Everything seemed to be going in the right direction. After graduating, my sister got her master's and then her PhD, and landed a job at a huge corporation. She became a success in every sense of the word. Her salary had long since surpassed mine, but I never felt bad about it. She was my sister connected by blood, and she was still the same sister who loved to act cute with me, who would crawl into my bed every night and who would stand by my bed in the morning feigning shock to wake me up. She'd even walk into the bathroom without a second thought while I was showering. I used to tease her, "When are you going to find me a brother-in-law?" Her smile would falter for a second and she'd shoot back, "I'll think about it when you find me a sister-in-law." We'd laugh and wrestle. I thought it was just because we were incredibly close. We had relied on each other our whole lives until I saw the notebook hidden in a cabinet. I found it while looking for our old photo albums. When I saw what was inside, I realized something was terribly wrong. Its pages were covered with pictures of me eating, sleeping, playing basketball. Even the photos of my female friends had big red X's drawn over their faces, and on several pages, words were scrolled in bright red ink. From that day on, I started to distance myself from her. I thought it was just a temporary phase, a confusion stemming from her fear of losing family after what happened to our parents. But I was wrong. When I woke up, I was tied up. She walked in, her face etched with sorrow, asking what she had done wrong to make me hate her so much. I tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen. From that day on, I was her prisoner, eating, sleeping, all in that room. She fed me every bite. I was in agony. This was all my fault. I hadn't taken care of her properly, and I had let her become this way. I had to atone. Gradually, I stopped fighting. I started cooperating with her. She was overjoyed. She prepared elaborate meals for me every day. We'd curl up together and watch movies and eat snacks, and my plan slowly took shape. One day, a plate shattered. She frantically cleaned it up, not noticing that I had hidden a shard. That day, the sky was clear and sunlight streamed through the window. My sister was sleeping soundly in bed. I slowly worked at the ropes I've been cutting all night. Luckily, she hadn't used chains. I got out of bed, looked at my sleeping sister, and left a note. "We need to cool off. Don't look for me." I ran out of the house, breathing in the fresh air, but I didn't expect her to wake up so quickly. "Brother, are you leaving me too?" She looked at me with a crazed expression, her face full of resentment. I shook my head. No, that's not it. We shouldn't be like this." She was furious. "You promised you would be with me until the end of my life. You broke your promise." She ran toward me, holding a pair of handcuffs and a taser. "I won't let you get away this time." Her crimson eyes stung me, and I turned and ran. I ran for a long time, but she was like a shadow, impossible to shake. I saw an intersection ahead. The light was about to turn red. I sprinted across. Traffic started to flow. She wouldn't be able to follow me now. I thought this was my chance, but she was running into the traffic. My heart pounded in my chest, and I started to move toward her. She was manic, completely disregarding her own safety. "Don't." I pushed her out of the way. I was the one sent flying into the air. In my final moments, I saw the panicked driver getting out of his car, heard the blare of horns all around me. My last sight was of my sister kneeling on the ground, sobbing her heart out. I couldn't hear what she was saying. I could only struggle to lift my hand, wanting to wipe the tears from her eyes to tell her that none of this was her fault, but there was no time. My hand froze in midair and then fell limp. What a shame. I couldn't stay with my sister until the end, but I thought I saw my mom and dad waving to me. "Mom, Dad, I'm coming to find you. Wait for me." You recognized me?" I looked at her incredulous. We looked completely different. Jessica just smiled because I'm the person who loves you most in this world. How could I not recognize you? I was stunned. Love, was it really that powerful? According to her, she had woken up to this world long ago. She had driven away the old flame who was pestering her, but he was persistent and wanted to come back to harm us. So, she decided to take care of the problem permanently by sending him to Eastern Europe. The assistant, too. She had dealt with him swiftly and decisively long before I even started looking for him. So my parents were actually the bookstore owners and my parents-in-law are our. I was shocked. No wonder it felt like everyone was in on it with Jessica, so that's how it was. Jessica smiled triumphantly. And besides, we're not related by blood now, so we can finally freely. I was about to refuse, but she lunged at me. I had to admit her plan was brilliant. She used the identity of Jessica to get me used to this life, slowly lowering my guard until I could accept her. And now I was actually responding to her, in a way. They weren't the same person anymore, and I had to admit I had started to like Jessica, a rich, beautiful woman like her, spending so much time together. How could you not develop feelings? After a tumble in the sheets, Jessica lay in my arms, but her mood seemed low. I'm sorry, she whispered, burying her head in my chest. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have died. I'm so sorry. It was clear she was still tormented by guilt over my death. I held her gently, patting her shoulder. Let the past be the past. Besides, you pay the price for it. After I died, my sister buried me. She donated all our money to charity and then died by my gravestone after taking a bottle of sleeping pills. It was my fault, too, for not handling our relationship better, for only thinking about running away, I said, feeling my own guilt. Now we have a new chance. Let's live it well. I promise it will be different this time. Jessica murmured a soft, okay. Then she touched her stomach and chuckled. You're right, we have a child to think about now after all. I replied automatically, yeah, right, have a what? Jessica smiled at me. I said, you're going to be a dad. When did that happen? I yelled. She gave me a mischievous look. Did you really think I'd just let you go? I didn't tell you who I was because I was afraid of scaring you away again. Did you really think you were sleeping alone every single night? The hair on my arm stood on end. No wonder I woke up with an aching back every morning. You drugged me. She raised an eyebrow playfully. What do you think? So those few months when I was traveling, the back etches then were also. Jessica leaned in close, her warm breath on my skin. Well, did you think I would let you run free? Do you have any idea how hard it is to get pregnant? That was all my hard work with a child. You can never run away from me again. Jessica's eyes were crimson. So everything had been under her control from the very beginning. Hubby, let's go again.